session is being recorded, and you guys are ready to begin when you're all organized. Alice, would you like to begin?
Yes, it's 1 minute before 11 by my iPhone, but I'll start. Good morning, everyone, and welcome and thank you for joining us for this Quality National Nursing Insights information session. I am Alice Godine, and I am the Canadian Association of Schools of Nursing, or CASN's president-elect. I'd also like to introduce my co-presenter and CASN's treasurer, Kirsten Woodend. CASN would like to acknowledge and pay respect to the Algonquin people, who are the traditional guardians of the land where CASN's office is located. We acknowledge their long-standing relationship with this territory, which remains unceded. We pay respect to all Indigenous people in this region from all nations across Canada who call Ottawa home. We acknowledge the traditional knowledge keepers, both young and old, and we honor their courageous leaders, past, present, and future. Since March 2020, the global pandemic has seriously challenged and continues to challenge Canada's healthcare system. Schools of nursing have also been challenged and are struggling to sustain the high quality of nursing education in the face of threats on multiple fronts. The purpose of today's session is to provide the public with information about challenges that nursing education is facing and to identify potential strategies schools of nursing are using or could use to address these challenges. CASN has collated the challenges its member schools of nursing are facing, and these are available by going to CASN's website, where you will see a link to the Quality Nursing Educational National Insights portal. You'll find a link to this portal in the chat. On this website or portal, CASN shares insights from our member schools about the challenges and strategies to address them. As we learn more from member schools, CASN will continue to update the insights and information on this website or portal. The portal is designed to enable users to reference insights that they find helpful or download the contents in English or French for advocacy purposes in their local context. CASN's hope is that by placing challenges and strategies to address the challenges on our website, schools of nursing across Canada can learn from each other and can use this information to support local initiatives. In our session today, Kirsten and I will be providing an overview of the 4 insights currently featured on the portal, as well as highlighting some examples related to each insight. Periodically, we will be asking participants to respond to poll questions. CASN staff members will monitor the responses as well as comments and questions that you can place in the chat if you wish. For any questions that we don't have time to answer today at the end of the session, CASN will respond to them following the session.
Thanks, Alice, and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to speak to all of you today. The first Quality Nursing Education National Insight is called Critical Nursing Shortage, and it centers around the nursing shortages that we've been seeing across the country. Canada's healthcare system is experiencing nursing shortages due to unsustainable working conditions that are compounded by the pandemic, as well as increasing demands that are facing new graduates. I'd like to pose a related question to the audience. Are you experiencing nursing shortages in your area? In my region of Ontario, Peterborough, the Peterborough Regional Health Centre, like many community hospitals in Ontario, has experienced and is experiencing staff shortages. The hospital emergency department has been confronted by high patient volumes, significant staffing challenges, and longer than usual wait times. Staffing shortages have also included, besides nurses, other emergency staff such as physicians and EMS personnel. The emergency department in Perth, another Ontario community hospital that's just down the road from us, was shut down for nearly 3 weeks due to staffing shortages. When it comes to fostering quality nurse education, there are no shortcuts. The quality of nursing education is critical to the retention of both new and experienced nurses who are leaving the profession because of an increasingly unstable and unforgiving work environment. Cutting corners to increase the number of nursing graduates will not produce a safe or a sustainable workforce. The solution to the problem is not to rush nursing students through their education programs, nor is it to cut corners to save costs. Nursing education programs are designed to equip students with the knowledge and skills that they need to bring this nation through to better health. The public and our governments need to address the working conditions leading to the nursing shortage in the short term and support a long-term solution to the current healthcare crisis. This has always been the strong educational preparation of practical nurses, LPNs in most provinces and RPNs in Ontario, registered nurses or RNs, and nurse practitioners, NPs, along with entry to practice support for all new nursing graduates. The investment in nursing education and the inclusion of nurse educators in developing strategies to address the current healthcare workforce crisis is crucial. There are several areas in nursing education that offer potential solutions to a sustainable nursing workforce, and these include, number one, increasing the clinical competence and retention of RN graduates. Number two, increasing the number of new RNs without sacrificing quality. And finally, number three, increasing the number of internationally educated nurses, or IENs for short, entering the nursing workforce. We need better support for new graduate transition. New graduates require a robust orientation program, a progressive workload, guidance, supervised practice, topical learning workshops, and support for at least 6 months and up to a year. By supporting their transition to practice through residency programs, we can increase the clinical competence and, importantly, the retention of RN graduates. We need to increase the number of IENs and cut the red tape. Through more effective collaboration with schools of nursing and nursing regulatory bodies, we can develop more standardized bridging programs offered by post-secondary institutions, reducing the wait time required for RNs to transition into practice. This can increase the number of experienced nurses entering the workforce quite significantly and alleviate nursing shortages. The Ontario Internationally Educated Nurses Course Consortium, or not so short, OIENCC, was formed in 2016 to address the growing shortages of registered nurses across the province of Ontario. And my university, Trent, is partnered with York, Windsor, and Toronto Metropolitan Universities in this work. The OIENCC offers a competency-based bridging program of study that includes online courses, simulation, clinical practice, learning support, and NCLEX preparation to assist IENs in becoming registered to practice in Ontario. This initiative provides IENs with courses that specifically address the full range of RN entry to practice competencies and meets the College of Nurses of Ontario baccalaureate level nursing education requirement. We continue, as things have been changing, to work with the Council of Ontario Universities, various ministries, and the College of Nurses of Ontario to ensure that the programming that we offer through this program meets IEN learning needs in the present constantly changing environment. Next, we need to increase the number of RNs without sacrificing quality. Through advanced standing baccalaureate nursing programs for individuals with a degree in another discipline, we can effectively increase the number of new RNs without sacrificing the quality of their education. These programs run throughout the full year, comprised of 3 to 4 rather than 2 terms over the period of the year, and are therefore normally completed in about 2 years without any reduction in the curriculum content. There is a high demand for admission into these programs, and their graduates typically excel as nurses. Did you know that there are multiple studies in both the United States and in Australia that have shown that residency programs increase the safety, clinical competence, and job satisfaction of new graduates while reducing the employer's turnover costs? CAUSN offers a structured, competency-based residency program that supports the integration of nursing graduates who are competent, emotionally resilient, and retainable into the workforce. The program was developed for healthcare institutions in response to the increasing demands facing new graduates. Program costs are paid by the health institution, the employer, or funded by government partners, either fully or partially. There is no cost to nursing graduates of this program. From advanced beginner to competent RN, CAUSN's residency program is helping to reduce nursing shortages by growing a sustainable, retainable nursing workforce with increased capacity and competence. For information about the program, you can contact CAUSN's Jessica Pierce-Lamotte, and you can see her smiling away on the screen there. We've included her email address in the chat. The Trent Fleming School of Nursing is a supporter of nursing residency. We also have a relatively new professional online Masters of Nursing, MSCN, in professional practice leadership that is offered jointly by Trent University and Ontario Tech University. And it is leading the way for the next generation of nurse leaders to drive, influence, and navigate the demands of Canada's rapidly changing healthcare landscape. We need nurses equipped to work side by side with other health professionals and with politicians to find solutions to the staffing and healthcare challenges that we're presently experiencing. Nurses' voices are very important. This concludes Nursing Insight number 1. Now I'll turn it over to Alice to present Insight number 2.
Thanks, Kirsten. The second Quality Nursing Education National Insight highlights the requirement for increased provincial territorial funding for seats, sites, and bridging programs for practical nurses. COVID-19 patients continue to require hospital beds, the number of older adults requiring care is increasing, and many experienced nurses are retiring, working part-time instead of full-time, and leaving the profession. Schools of nursing in all provincial territorial jurisdictions are responding to government demands to increase the number of students admitted to a program, open new sites, and/or offer additional programs. Schools, however, are already graduating more nurses than ever before. Did you know that the number of new registered nurses entering the healthcare workforce climbed steadily from a low of 4,816 in the year 2000? CASN conducts an annual nursing student and faculty survey. In the last 6 years, schools of nursing have been graduating more than 12,000 nurses annually, more grads than ever before. The link to the annual CASN survey will be shown in the chat. A challenge to increasing nursing seats is inadequate funding for faculty, resources, facilities, and support to be able to effectively prepare a record number of new nurses with the knowledge, skills, and resilience needed in today's workforce. There's an urgent need for an investment in high-quality nursing education to support additional seats. But even when nursing seats are funded, a challenge may be finding sufficient quality clinical placement and nurse educators. Educating more students requires additional qualified faculty, experienced clinical instructors, well-equipped simulation labs, good library resources, and adequate and appropriate clinical placement sites. Nursing faculty have been stretched to the limit, and clinical placement sites, which are essential to nursing education, are oversaturated. However, despite increasingly complex healthcare conditions, applications for admissions to baccalaureate programs of nursing are very high, which is a testament to the potential tenacity of our future nurses. There needs to be increases in investment in the quality of nursing education, not just in the number of seats. Provinces need to work with schools of nursing to invest more strategically in quality education through funding, resources, and support that will empower schools to fully prepare nursing graduates who are competent, emotionally resilient, and retainable. As an example of an investment in nursing education, to help address the shortage of nurses in Newfoundland and Labrador, the then Minister of Health and Community Services announced in October 2021 that the Faculty of Nursing, Memorial University of Newfoundland, would add an additional 72 undergraduate nursing seats. This is a 25% increase in undergraduate seats in the province. He also announced that the Faculty of Nursing would open 3 satellite sites for baccalaureate nursing students, one in Gander, one in Grand Falls, Windsor, and one in Happy Valley, Goose Bay. The spring 2022 provincial budget announced $3.1 million for Memorial's budget to support the 72 additional seats and 3 satellite sites for the first year of the offering. In addition, the then Minister of Health and Community Services announced a 40% increase in practical nurse seats in October 2021, which was increased to a 64% increase in June 2022, which is an additional 92 practical nursing program seats across 5 campuses at the College of North Atlantic in Newfoundland for the 2022 to 23 academic year. A $3.87 million investment through the Provincial Federal Labor Market Development Agreement will transfer this expansion of practical nurse seats that will be distributed across the college's Gander, Bay St. George, Burin, St. Anthony, and Carbonear campuses. These seats, when added to the 144 regular annual intake in Newfoundland and Labrador, result in a new total capacity of 236 practical nurse seats. It is the hope that adding more graduates will help develop a workforce that meets the needs of the province. We'd like to hear from those of you who are attending today. Has your school recently received pressure to increase the number of seats for nursing students? This is a poll question, which you will see shortly, and it's question, I think it's question number 3 if they show up. You'll notice that there's about, okay, just one question is here. It's question 2. Insight number 2, quality nursing education. In the Quality Nursing Education National Insights Portal, also focuses on the use of nursing students as unregulated healthcare workers to relieve nursing shortages. Some provinces are allowing nursing students to serve as unregulated workers in hospitals, either for pay or academic credit, to help alleviate stress on the system. How many of you have any experience working with unregulated healthcare workers in your school or hospital? This should be another poll question that you'll see. While unregulated healthcare workers are valuable members of the healthcare team, and they provide health or other care to clients and patients, an unregulated care provider, or UCP for short, is not regulated under the Regulated Health Professions Act. Unregulated care providers are compensated providers who have no legally defined scope of practice or practice standards, and there is no regulatory mechanism to monitor quality of service. The responsibility of determining the appropriateness of each unregulated care provider rests with supervising registered nurses and/or the employer. As an example of how one province has responded to unregulated care providers who provide nursing care, in 2019, the College of Registered Nurses of Newfoundland and Labrador issued an interpretive document which outlines the responsibilities and accountabilities of the registered nurse when collaborating with unregulated care providers in community settings. It confirms that there is no established list of nursing tasks that unregulated care providers can perform, and so the burden is on the registered nurse to determine which tasks are appropriate and safe for the unregulated care providers to carry out and to provide formal, informal education, theory and practical, to facilitate the delivery of services by unregulated care providers. The interpretive document that I just mentioned is available at the link that is shown in the chat. Unregulated care provider programs done right for academic credit and/or for pay can help everyone. Nursing students working as unregulated care providers obtain practical hands-on and observational clinical experience in a healthcare setting. It is paramount, however, that their clinical practical experiences are not limited to the provision of personal care support if their work as an unregulated care provider is used to replace their clinical placement within a curriculum. In Newfoundland and Labrador, unregulated care providers have been used for students who wish to be employed part-time during the academic year or during the summer. Yet nursing students sometimes advocate that their clinical experiences in their program should be paid. To do so would require additional funding, not only for the students, but for the registered nurses who are responsible for the work of the student, who is an unregulated care provider. When done wrong, an unregulated care provider program experience provides an extra personal care helper, but results in a nursing graduate who is underprepared for the job. When done right, hospitals gain much needed nursing support, patients gain the care of better prepared nursing students, and the students gain foundational caring skills and a better understanding of the healthcare service environment. At this stage, I'll hand things back to Kirsten for presenting insight number 3.
Thanks, Alice. The third Quality Nursing Education National Insight is focused on the current state of COVID-19 in-person classes, labs, and clinical placements. The pandemic caused a 2-year period of repeated curricular disruptions, forcing schools to repeatedly readjust learning approaches. Faculty and students shifted back and forth from in-person to remote learning. This disrupted student access to clinical placements, as well as in-person classroom and laboratory learning. COVID-19 continues to create challenges to ER and hospital bed capacity, and experienced nurses have been leaving the professions in large number. These further impact clinical learning. The demands on both nursing educators and on nursing students since the start of the pandemic have been heavy. Did you know that there is evidence that entry to practice is highly stressful for new nursing graduates? It is clear that increased stress among new nursing graduates leads to early departures from the nursing workforce. Nursing is a complex and emotionally demanding profession that requires graduates to possess an in-depth theoretical and scientific foundation, strong clinical reasoning skills, solid clinical judgment, honed technical skills, along with compassion and emotional resilience. Insight number 3 highlights the need for support for practice-based learning. Students require robust, practice-based learning experiences. Schools of nursing need support to establish more clinical placement and preceptor sites. They also require support to hire clinical instructors, preceptors, mentors, and coaches, as well as to establish well-equipped simulation labs that will facilitate nursing students' access to clinical placements and in-person laboratory learning. Once again, we'd like to hear from you. Has your school been fighting for support to access more clinical and preceptor sites and placements? There should be a poll coming up. At the Trent Fleming School of Nursing, clinical placements, as in most schools, are treated as a critical experiential learning opportunity that complements knowledge gained in theory courses and hands-on activities. Placements for our school typically take place in the Peterborough and surrounding area, including, but not limited to Durham, Northumberland, and the city of Kawartha Lakes. Although in their final year, many of our students are also placed in the Toronto area. There are a great many factors that play into the complex process of arranging placements for each individual student, and thus preferences cannot always be accommodated. The last segment of this third insight is focused on living with endemic COVID. As our provinces continue to open up with fluctuating COVID case rates, schools of nursing must prepare nursing graduates to support Canadians in the context of endemic COVID. Governments must provide support for long-term solutions to the current healthcare crisis. strong educational preparation of LPN, RPNs, RNs, and NPs, as well as entry to practice support for all new nursing graduates, provides a solution. With the pressure to increase seats amidst repeated COVID waves paired with inadequate support for additional placements, we are fortunate that with simulation, we can create experiences that clinical placements can't always provide. At the Trent Fleming School of Nursing, we've recognized the value of simulation, both virtual and in the Clinical Learning Center, labs, and have invested in the role of this technology in nursing education. We can simulate environments that not every nursing student will have the opportunity to practice in. It's a powerful tool that allows us to slow down processes and create safe learning environments, allowing students to think critically about the situation. We have another question for you. Has your nursing school been able to take advantage of simulations in its nursing curriculum? Simulation, as you all know, runs the gamut from the use of high-tech mannequins to working with actors who simulate nurse-patient interactions or recreating clinical experience using computer avatars. The Trent Fleming School of Nursing has Canada's only university nursing program with a fully accredited simulation center, internationally accredited, and it is providing leadership in clinical simulation, both at the university and with our clinical partners. For the fourth and final quality nursing education insight, I'm going to turn the spotlight back to Alice.
Thanks, Kirsten. We're now going to look at the fourth or the final insight, which really underpins all of the preceding insights by highlighting the need for government collaboration and investment. Effective collaboration among nursing education, governments, and healthcare services results in more strategic investments in nursing education that will help conserve the high quality of nursing education that Canada is known for internationally and help resolve the current nursing shortage. Schools require additional funding for programs, resources, sites, and faculty. But more than that, they require a seat or seats at the strategic planning table. This will allow them to provide context on the challenges and education on what works and what doesn't work. With effective collaboration, the right support goes to the best solution at the appropriate time. Schools of nursing need a seat at that table. Effective collaboration between governments, service, and nursing education is foundational to addressing the current nursing shortage and improving the health of Canadians. We strongly encourage government leaders to reach out to the schools of nursing in their province and invite them to present the challenges they are experiencing and collaborate with them on the development of feasible and effective strategies to overcome them. We need to start looking at solving problems upstream before they become severe and chronic problems. As a final question for the audience, have you recently experienced effective collaboration between schools of nursing and government, which leads to strategic planning? Related to the example I gave of an increase of baccalaureate nursing students and practical nursing seats, these decisions need to be associated with collaborative work with nurse educators to identify problems that may occur down the line with increased numbers of nursing students, such as the need for clinical placements and nurse educators. Similarly, discussions about the use of unregulated care providers, whether for clinical course credit or for payment, need to occur among key players in schools of nursing, government, and healthcare organizations.
This concludes the fourth and final Quality Nursing Education National Insight. At this time, before we conclude the information session, Alice and I would like to take the opportunity to answer any questions or address any comments from the audience on any of the 4 insights that we've outlined for you today. Krista has a question.
Actually, it's more of a comment, and I just wanted to, so my name is Krista Massey. I'm the coordinator for clinical placement at the University of Manitoba College of Nursing, and I just want to say how this session has just made me feel like I'm seen and I'm heard, and I'm among colleagues and friends that totally understand what I've just lived the last 2 years. So thank you very much for hosting this and for your presentation, because I think it just makes me feel better to know that we're all, feel better and not feel better at the same time, that we're all experiencing very similar things across the country. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Krista.
Kirsten, there's a message in the chat about the IEN.
Okay.
About there was a surprise that there was a need to develop a new program while CARE and PASS have been doing the same work for IENs. Why wasn't it just built on that?
And in fact, they're not redundant. We partner with CARE, and they don't offer the same content. They don't offer courses that help people meet their competency gaps as outlined in the letter that comes from the regulatory body. So we work together. We're not redundant.
Okay, thank you. And there's another question about, we offer UCP positions without barriers to all IENs as soon as they arrive and while they work towards getting registered. I think that might have been just a comment or a thought, an idea.
And that's lovely to hear. And I'm going to make a note of that to bring back to our working group. Thank you. I see Brenda has her hand up.
Hi, thanks everybody. Good morning. I'm coming from Vancouver Island, Vancouver Island University. And one of the challenges we have is with regards to hiring faculty. We're challenged with getting faculty to come to the island, mainly because of the housing shortage and the cost of housing on the island. And in addition, the salaries. So compared to the rest of the country, our salaries are quite low. And so I don't know if that's something that can be addressed at a national level, but it's a challenge in terms of us getting a full-time faculty.
Thank you. And I think we can take that back, but it'd be interesting to hear from other people across the country about whether they're experiencing obviously slightly different, but similar challenges to yours. Someone's raised a question about how can we get laddering education between healthcare aide, LPN, and RN that is not creating the redundancy of the current situation. I don't think I'm the expert to answer that question.
I'll just say it's an excellent question and something that I think needs to be looked at more. And it is an area where policy and funders, government workers, and nurse educators have to collaborate, because it does require a new curriculum, which has to be approved, and it requires the resources for a different curriculum. I'm sure there are people here today that can add more to that question.
And as I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, CNA actually had a report out at one point talking about, I think, Villeneuve, about laddering and some of the ideas. Kathy Thibault has a question.
Yes, I just wanted to comment on the laddering issue. I'm not an expert on laddering for sure, but one of the things that occurs to me is that we have yet to, in all of our provinces and in all of our jurisdictions, fully integrate practical nurse practice and registered nurse practice, and also personal care workers, et cetera. So the unregulated sector. So I think there's a resistance in some way, not so much with the LPN, RPN, I think that's happening pretty well. But with the unregulated workers who are in fact schooled in basic principles of nursing, many of them. So, you know, I think when we don't recognize what our whole family of nursing is, then it's really hard to build an educational program that reflects that family. And so that's just my point of view. I think part of it is a little bit of resistance to recognizing nursing, the full scope of what nursing is.
Thank you for those comments, Kathy. Cynthia has her hand up. Our ED.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment related to the question to do with laddering. I do hear questions around laddering, but I think there's a really important point that gets lost when people are thinking about laddering, and that is the value of personal care workers to the healthcare system. This came through so clearly at the beginning of the pandemic. We saw how important personal care workers are. And the same with practical nurses, the importance of practical nurses to the system. And so I think with these shortages, we need to recognize the value that they are bringing. And sometimes this talk of laddering, and it's wonderful to offer people opportunities for advancement, but we lose the importance of these healthcare workers to the system. It's just point. Thank you.
Thanks, Cynthia. That's a good point. I don't think you ever want to imply that personal care workers and practical nurses, they're still needed and really important. I just want to get back to an issue about simulation. I saw something in the chat, and simulation is you know, there was a comment that, you know, the amount of research, and I think one of the issues is that we as nurse educators and people in health organizations are very much aware that you still need clinical placements with in clinical settings. And sometimes people think, well, it doesn't matter how many students you have because we can always use simulation. And you know, that's something that through collaboration, I think we need to make very clear. And the other thing that people sometimes don't realize is it's not just buying high fidelity mannequins or paying or getting actors to work with nursing students as simulated patients. The number of faculty and clinical instructors that is needed to put a relatively small number of students through a simulation makes it you know, resource intensive, not only for equipment, but for faculty teaching weights and the amount of time they're working. So the current ways that many schools of nursing are funded is not for including simulation. They do need a budget increase for these resources.
Lee Chapman, our new Chief Nursing Officer for Canada, has posted a question in the chat. She says, emotional resilience was mentioned several times along with entry to practice competencies. Is this a personal attribute or a competency? Does CASN have a standard definition for emotional resilience? And I would say it was a personal attribute, but others might disagree. I don't know if you want to comment on that, Cynthia, or others?
We don't have a standard definition of it, and I think that's an excellent question. So at this stage, it's a personal attribute.
I would say, though, that one of the things that nurse educators do, if you talk in particular to clinical instructors, is to help them build on their emotional resistance. So the most important part, or a very important part of a clinical experience, is when the nursing instructor does a debrief with the students afterwards, and they make sense of what they've seen. They talk about how to cope with it. They, if anyone sees how nurses have acted and, you know, wonders why, they do a discussion. So I do know that both clinical instructors for early courses and the instructors that work with nurses and preceptors in final year courses are trying to build resilience and to really help the new student, new graduate, when they graduate, to you know, to help with that transition to practice.
Alice and Kristen, I can actually speak a little bit more to that in regards to the residency program in particular. So in our residency program, we have a set of competencies and indicators that the new graduates can sort of map their journey to. And one of them, under the professional change agent category, does focus on managing stress during the transition, the role transition. And so the indicators include using self-care strategies to promote resiliency and manage personal and professional stress. So while we don't have a definition for that specifically, it is included in the residency competencies, looking at those sort of psychosocial components of what it means to transition to the profession. I'd be happy to answer more questions about that if you have any, or at least to the best of my ability. Thanks.
Thanks, Jessica. That's really helpful. I see a comment that virtual simulation games are a great alternative, and you know, I agree with that. And CASN has recently worked with others, and there's games for public health nursing that have recently been released as a free resource to all schools of nursing across Canada.
Kathy has her hand up. Kathy
I just
Tebow.
I'll just make one more comment. I just wanted to say that I find it interesting that we're talking about emotional resiliency and what it means, and et cetera. And at the same time, we're talking about substituting in-person learning with virtual simulation, I should say. So I find that a bit of a disconnect. And I know that, you know, life is not one or the other. Education is not one or the other. And we have to marry all of these things and use our resources to the greatest potential. But the more, in my view, the more disconnected we are from the patient and the experiences that we have with the patient, the less in our learning environment, the less opportunity we have to process some of those issues. And processing what you did with an avatar is not the same as processing what happened when you were working with a real client. So that's just my feeling. I just wanted to put that out there because the irony of talking about resilience and virtual simulation kind of hit me in the face.
Thank you, Kathy. Someone asked what the enrollment is in the CASN residency program. I don't know, Jessica, if you're able to answer that.
So in the residency program itself, currently we're running one program in the Northwest Territories at a hospital there. We're in the process of requesting some funding that has several different employers as partners. So we're just sort of waiting for the results of that. The preceptor mentor program, which is part of the residency program, but also functions independently, has had hundreds of people go through it so far. So we're really pleased with the uptake on that piece. Yeah.
Thank you. There's also been a post in the chat by Liliana who says, but simulated learning should build resiliency. You can safely fail without harming anyone and be ready for in-person care. And Kathy has responded that she was talking primarily about virtual simulation. Fear of failure is not the only issue. Brenda has her hand up.
Hi, thank you for this very stimulating conversation. It's very interesting. My one comment just about simulation, just in my experience at our university, is students are often more stressed in a simulation situation or in lab assessment situations rather than being in the hospital with patients. They become real people, they're with real patients, they're able to meet them and work with them. And it's far easier for them to do that than to be in a simulation setting or in a lab assessment skills where the stress level is so high that they're not actually getting good synapses and actually good critical thinking at the time. The debriefing sessions are fantastic though. Just my thoughts for now.
Thank you. Good points.
I just want to address a comment made by Jamie Feldstein because it's something that I've also noticed, and that is that we do have to look at the salary that we offer clinical nurse educators who are prepared at the master's level and are a really very important part of our programs. And, you know, compared to what sometimes they can make in practice. And so that's something that the university where I am at has looked at addressing, just because we need to retain them. But another problem that I've noticed is that our Masters in Nursing nurse practitioner programs are becoming way more popular than our master's program that is not for nurse practitioners. And really the master's program that's not for nurse practitioners, they're actually a lot of them become our future nurse educators. So I think it's a growing concern in terms of our ability to recruit clinical instructors who are very competent and help mentor our next graduates. That I think that's something that's, with the shortage of nurses, is going to become more problematic.
There are some good resources being shared in the chat, and I've checked in with Devin, who says that they will download and save the chat, so we won't lose track of these resources. Renee, your hand is up.
Thank you for this presentation. It's been really interesting, and I agree with the person who said they feel heard. Gosh, everything you've said today really resonates with the faculty here in UNB, I can say for sure. But I am interested, you had mentioned government collaboration. If you can speak to any provincial or federal ideas that are happening, or success stories that are happening related to government collaboration for funding.
I can give you one that's a starter, but I'm going to get that Cynthia can probably give you a much better picture. So for instance, in relation to the internationally educated nurses, as you know, the ground is constantly shifting, particularly from a regulatory perspective. And so they've been very open to, our ministries have been very open to having conversations with us to see how we might revise things to move forward in a changing situation in order to expedite entry to practice. Cynthia, I don't know where anybody has a larger picture contribution to that.
Unfortunately, I don't have a larger picture contribution to this important question. Yeah.
Shelley has said it would be great to have a follow-up session that focuses on opportunities and strategies for positive collaborations as we move forward. And we are all aware of the issues and would like to move beyond this to some solutions. And Shelley, I can imagine even a session on how we work collaboratively with our partners at various levels of government might be very helpful.
I'm going to give a few concluding comments. I do agree that I think it would be good to see a session where we can share strategies both on the portal, but maybe have another webinar to discuss them. I did see one comment that talked about, yes, clinical placements are saturated, but there's also rural placements that haven't been used. And there are some strategies that, for example, Newfoundland and Labrador has used for that. One is working in collaboration with government. We have a special fund where we can place nurses in rural areas for their block clinicals. And the other, of course, is having 3 satellite sites in rural areas and a remote area of the province where students have their theory courses through web teaching. And I know other provinces are doing that now. So thank you everyone for your questions and for attending today. As some closing remarks, maintaining Canada's high quality of nursing education is critical to the health and well-being of Canadians. Nursing is a complex and emotionally demanding profession, and I would venture to say it's becoming more so. Nursing incompetence or nursing error can put patients' lives in jeopardy. Maintaining the high quality of Canadian healthcare must remain paramount. CASN and our member schools of nursing are working tirelessly to maintain high quality nursing education in Canada, and we look forward to strengthening alliances through communication, cooperation, and collaboration on strategies to resolve the current health human resources issues and rejuvenate the healthcare workforce. I'd like to end the session by thanking Kirsten for speaking today. On behalf of CASN and its board of directors, I wish to extend our appreciation to each of you for joining us and participating. We encourage each of you to visit and revisit the Quality Nursing Education Portal, Insights Portal, for new key messages as we hear more from Canada's schools of nursing, and to keep striving to maintain the high quality of nursing education that Canada is known for around the world. Thanks, and all the best to each of you. If there's any further questions, I think Kirsten and I will stay on for a few more minutes because we are a couple of minutes early in finishing.